The first thing Claire noticed was the way he apologized. Not the quick, careless kind people used when they didn't mean it. His apology came with eye contact, a small nod, and the quiet sincerity of someone who truly believed he might have inconvenienced the world. "Sorry," he said, stepping back to let her pass through the grocery store aisle. Claire smiled politely and pushed her cart forward, but she glanced back once. The man wore a faded baseball cap, worn jeans, and a jacket that had clearly survived more winters than most people would tolerate. Beside him stood a little boy clutching a cereal box almost as big as his chest. "Dad, can we get this one?" the boy asked. The man studied the price tag for a moment, then smiled. "Sure, buddy, but that's the only sugar bomb today." Claire didn't know why the moment stayed with her. Maybe it was the gentleness in the man's voice. Maybe it was the way the boy looked at him like he was the safest place in the world. Or maybe it was the strange feeling that this quiet stranger was carrying more life behind his eyes than he let anyone see. She saw him again 2 weeks later. It was raining hard outside a small coffee shop downtown, the kind with foggy windows and a chalkboard menu that changed every day. Claire had just finished a 12-hour workday. As CEO of one of Chicago's fastest-growing healthcare software companies, she was used to pressure, deadlines, and decisions that affected thousands of people. But tonight she just wanted coffee and 10 minutes of silence. She pushed the door open and stopped. The same man stood at the counter. The little boy from the grocery store sat at a table near the window, coloring on a napkin. "Hot chocolate for him," the man told the barista, sliding a few crumpled bills across the counter. Then he hesitated. "And 1 coffee." Claire noticed the barista glance at the money, then at the menu. The coffee cost slightly more. The man must have noticed, too, because he started to pull the money back. "That's okay," he said quietly. "Just the hot chocolate." Before the barista could respond, Claire stepped forward. "I'll take care of the coffee." Both men looked at her. The stranger blinked, clearly uncomfortable. "You don't have to do that." "I know," Claire said with a small smile. "But I want to." He studied her for a moment like he was trying to understand the motive behind kindness. Finally, he nodded. "Thank you." That was how it started. His name was Daniel Harper. He worked as a mechanic at a small auto shop on the south side of the city. He lived in a modest rental house with his 7-year-old son, Noah. There was no dramatic first date, no sweeping romance, just quiet conversations over coffee while Noah colored pictures at the table. Claire learned that Daniel read history books before bed, that he fixed neighbors' cars for free when they couldn't afford repairs, that he volunteered at Noah's school whenever they needed help setting up events. And slowly, she noticed something else. Daniel never talked about his past. Whenever conversation drifted there, he redirected it with gentle skill. Claire assumed it was pain. Everyone carried some, but she never pushed. Instead, she focused on what she could see. A father who packed homemade lunches, a man who never raised his voice, someone who treated waiters, janitors, and CEOs exactly the same. 16 months later, they were married in a small ceremony in a public park. No luxury venue, no elaborate decorations, just family, friends, and Noah proudly holding the rings like the most important job in the world. Claire often joked that she had married the most ordinary man alive. Daniel laughed every time. Life settled into a peaceful rhythm. Claire ran her company. Daniel ran the household like a quiet anchor. He cooked dinner most nights, helped Noah with homework, fixed things around the house before Claire even noticed they were broken. It was a simple life, a happy one. Until the morning, everything changed. Claire had just finished a board meeting when her assistant rushed into the office. "Claire, there's someone here asking for your husband." "My husband?" "Yes, 2 men. They say it's urgent." Claire frowned. "Send them in." The door opened. 2 men stepped inside. Both wore dark suits. Both stood with a posture Claire had seen before in military ceremonies. One of them spoke first. "Ma'am, we're looking for Daniel Harper." Claire nodded slowly. "That's my husband. Why?" The men exchanged a look. Then the older one said something that made the room suddenly feel smaller. "Ma'am, your husband's name isn't Daniel Harper." Claire laughed nervously. "I think I know my husband's name." The man's voice remained calm. "His real name is Captain Daniel Hayes, United States Army." Claire's stomach tightened. That's impossible. The second man placed a thin folder on her desk. Inside were photographs, a younger version of Daniel in military uniform, standing beside soldiers, helicopters, dusty landscapes. Another photo showed a medal being pinned to his chest by a general. Claire stared at the image. Her husband looked the same. Same calm eyes, same quiet strength. The older officer continued gently. Captain Hayes was one of the most decorated special operations leaders of the last decade. Claire shook her head. You're mistaken. We're not. The man took a slow breath. Ma'am, he saved 12 soldiers during an ambush overseas. Carried 2 of them out himself under fire. Claire felt like she was listening to someone else's life story, not the man who packed Noah's lunches. Then why is he fixing cars? She whispered. Because he disappeared after his final mission. The room fell silent. Claire drove home in a blur. Her mind replayed every conversation she'd ever had with Daniel. Every time he had quietly avoided talking about the past. Every moment she had assumed his life had always been simple. When she walked through the front door, Daniel was in the kitchen. Cooking dinner, just like always. He turned when he saw her face, and immediately knew. They found me, he said softly. Claire's voice trembled. Your name isn't Daniel Harper. He wiped his hands on a towel and sat down. It is now. That's not an answer. For a long moment he stared at the table. Then he finally spoke. After my last mission, some men didn't make it home. Claire sat across from him, barely breathing. I did everything I could, he continued. But when you lead people into danger, you carry every loss. His voice cracked slightly. I couldn't do it anymore. So you just left? I retired quietly. Changed my name. Moved somewhere no one knew me. Claire looked around the small kitchen. The worn cabinets. The family photos on the fridge. You chose this life? Daniel nodded. I chose peace. At that moment, the front door burst open. Noah ran inside, waving a piece of paper. Dad, look! I got an A on my test. Daniel's entire face lit up. That's my boy. He pulled Noah into a hug. Claire watched the moment carefully. This was the man she married. Not the soldier. The father. The next day, the 2 officers returned. This time, Daniel answered the door. We need you, the older man said. Daniel shook his head immediately. I'm done. This isn't combat. What is it then? A training command. New recruits. Daniel hesitated. You're the kind of leader they need. Daniel looked back into the house. At Noah doing homework at the table. At Claire watching from the hallway. For the first time, she understood the weight he carried. That night, they sat on the porch after Noah went to bed. You should go, Claire said quietly. Daniel looked surprised. You married a mechanic, he said. Claire smiled gently. No, I married a good man. She took his hand. And good men don't hide from the chance to help others. Daniel was silent for a long time. Finally, he nodded. Months later, Claire stood in the crowd at a military ceremony. Rows of young soldiers stood proudly on the field. At the front stood Daniel, or rather Captain Hayes, confident, strong, leading again. But when the ceremony ended, he didn't walk toward the officers. He walked straight to Claire and Noah. And when Noah jumped into his arms, the decorated captain laughed like the ordinary dad he had always wanted to be. Because in the end, the most heroic thing Daniel Hayes ever did wasn't fighting wars. It was building a quiet life filled with kindness, love, and the simple courage to be human again.